mics on, please. We are back in session from an executive meeting where we discussed the personnel matter and also contract negotiations. Can I have everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to defer announcements. Does anyone have anything I would like to announce right now? Okay, then we will do comments and shout outs at the end. Can I have an adopted agenda, please? Motion that we Deanna first, Gus a second, all in favor? 7 in favor, the motion passes. Thank you so much. Dr. Robinson, please.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sullivan. So before I go into the study session, I just want to make, just a kind of a good news kind of thing. The U.S. News and World Report always put out these ranks and rating of schools. And it was just neat that, so they do statewide, countrywide, and they do region-wide. And it's neat that kudos to elementary and high school, elementary and middle school focus. The number 1 and 2 middle schools in our region, Gowanus and Acadia, and Coda in the top 10 at number 8. And the number 1 elementary school in the region, Chango. And we have 3 others in the top 10 as well. So I share that because it's just kind of one of those things. Once in a while, you know, it's kind of good to acknowledge that as a system, we're doing great work as a system, and then when you see, and sometimes the differential between number 1 and number 10 is very small, but still, it's kind of nice to know that as a system, a lot of people are doing a lot of good work. So I want to say kudos to all our leaders, for that matter, because we try not to create a situation where it's one versus the other, because we want to have parity in our schools where it doesn't matter. And I recall when I first became superintendent here, I had people trying to sell me houses everywhere, and I kept saying, I'm going to buy the house that my daughter and my wife likes, and my only condition, it has to be on a dead-end street. Because when I come home from work, I want to be home. And so all our schools should be able to cater to any family, regardless of where they buy a house. And I would say that over the years, we definitely have that because we have quality experiences in all our schools. So I just want to share that with the board as a good news thing, but also to kind of set the stage in terms of as you look at the agenda items for tonight, there's some big rock stuff that we're talking about, right? You know, enrollment, where we're going with capital project, bus electrification, some big things that are multi-year or have multi-year implications. And I think that, again, speaks to the district, speaks to the board in terms of forward thinking all the time and not being reactionary versus being proactive and thinking about what's to come and how do we prepare and position ourselves as a school system to take advantage of those opportunities. So tonight we have those presentations, and I'm thankful for those folks who are listed here, who are willing to come and partake in this process. And so at this point, I transition to Sarah, who's going to set up the enrollment piece. And as Sarah talks about the details, the reason why we do this time of the year is it also gives us some backdrop as we start thinking about budget and what are some trends that we need to think about as we plan one budget that impacts future budgets. So that's the reason why the timing of this becomes important in November, because it's our first time to start thinking, what does the future look like? You know, what do the trend lines look like? Is it something we have to make major adjustments for, or do we kind of keep the course in terms of our plan and sequence? So with that being said, Sarah.
Good evening, everybody. So while we certainly look at enrollment data, analyze it, monitor it through.
I don't think it's on.
Oh,
Good evening, everybody. That. Take 2.
So while we examine, monitor, analyze our enrollment data throughout the year in our typical data cycles and within the foundation of our data work, this presentation tonight and the enrollment projections forecast that you see in front of you provides us the opportunity to look at our data a little bit differently. Capital District Regional Planning Commission, as some of you know because you have been hearing this report for quite some time, they are able to add in additional data points that we don't have access to. So the report is inclusive of, starts with our data, right, our enrollment data, which we share with them, and then they utilize pieces like housing sales and birth rates, and they add that into the formulas to give us projections, the ability to kind of forecast moving forward. I think what's nice at this point is that when you look through some of these reports, we have almost 20 years of data within here. And so you can see where we forecasted one way and we have gone in a different direction, right? And I think that that's a good thing because these are only forecasts, these are only projections, right? It is looking at data and projecting forward based on that, but there's a lot of pieces that we don't know. And being in the area that we're in, we have a lot of stability built in around us because of the housing market, because of the area that we're in. And so I think where we might see enrollment decreasing, we can also see then when you follow it, it really does maintain some level of stability. So you're going to hear tonight from Madison Harisco from the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. Come on up, Madison.
You want to drive?
Yeah, you have that or the clicker.
I think she read it quick.
All right, so Madison is going to take you through the slides.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Madison Harisco. I'm the GIS and Data Analyst at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here to present your school enrollment projections for this year. For those of you who are not familiar, Capital District Regional Planning Commission is a regional planning resource center serving the capital region comprised of our 4 counties, Saratoga, Schenectady, Albany, and Rensselaer County. We provide objective data analysis, economic forecasting, water quality, we work on sustainability initiatives in the region, and we also do school enrollment projections. Just to kind of walk you through the outline of our presentation tonight, we're going to look at the methodology, take a look at some trends in birth rates and survival multipliers, some housing data for the district, enrollment projections, and then taking a look at the actual enrollment for this year compared with the projections that were done last year. So to start, the very basic methodology of our school enrollment projections is looking at something called a survival multiplier. Essentially, that's retention year over year for grades 1 through 12, fairly straightforward. If there are 100 first graders in the 2023-2024 school year, next year there's 120. Your survival multiplier will be 1 over 2, or 1.2, sorry. For kindergarten, this gets a little bit more complicated. We take a look at births. For example, if there are 100 births in 2019, we take a look 5 years later, how many students are enrolled in kindergarten. That ratio would be 1.2 again. I apologize, this is a little bit small to see, and my highlight is not here, but the current year is right where my mouse is. So you can see there's 442 general education students enrolled in kindergarten 5 years prior. In 2019, there were 585 students born, giving us a survival multiplier for birth to kindergarten at 0.7556. I've included some averages over here. This year's survival multiplier is higher than the 5-year average, but lower than our 10 and 18-year average. Kindergarten enrollment is especially important to monitor because it provides the district with a base in which future cohorts grow from. And with future plans to adopt full-day kindergarten, we will likely see the survival multiplier in the future increase. If the survival,
Go ahead, Matt. Go finish it.
Okay, my last little point is that if the survival multiplier is over 1, it signifies growth. If it is under 1, it signifies stagnation or decline.
Yeah, so while Madison is on that chart, and we have had some of this conversation here in this room, the numbers are lower, obviously, historically than not. The piece that we are cognizant of, if you're looking at the number of births are in that 600 range, and so we anticipate with 4-day K, you're going to have, just by nature of that, more. And also, we have families who choose not to move in the district because of the lack of full-day K, or should let me say it the opposite way. It's gonna be more attractive to families with younger kids to move in the district when we have full-day K than not. So would that be 25, 26, 26, 27 thing? That's to be seen. Will it be likely 27, 28 when we see when Madison's back here again and this trend line is doing this? I think we're gonna reflect on this day and say, yeah, that's what happened when you have 5 Maxwell come online. That's the reason why we're building it to grow into and not building it to meet existing capacity, which is an important part because the building is oversized right now in comparison to the existing capacity that we have. But we don't have this opportunity again to build another facilities like that, so we're gonna build it to grow into. So hopefully that makes some sense.
The birth data comes from New York State DOH and it's lagged by 2 years, so our most recent data available is from 2022. However, this year, so the 2022 data is correlated to our projections for 2027, 2028. If our total projection period is 5 years ending in 2029, 2030, so we need to estimate the final 2 years of births. And we do that by looking at historic trends and averages for the district. So we've estimated that in 2023 there'll be 619 births, and then the following year 627 births. Moving on to total enrollment. This is the 20-year total enrollment for general education students. Last year was the district's 20-year low. However, there's been an increase in enrollment this year of 60 students. This is just singling out kindergarten enrollment over time. A slight decrease from last year, a 16 student decrease from last year. There are 442 kindergarten students enrolled this year. Now we break this out into grade cohorts. So this is the K through 5 enrollment cohort. Compared to last year, there was a 41 student decrease. This is the 6 through 8 enrollment cohort, which is comprised this year of 2,061 students. Compared to last year, there has been a 48 student increase. This is the 9 through 12 cohort. This year is 2,662 students, which is a 31 student increase from last year. Another piece of this report is looking at the number of housing units just in your district, your school district. So the solid green lines you can see, and I apologize that these numbers are not supposed to be here. It must have got switched in translation from PDF to Google Slides. But there's been a 3,000 housing unit increase from 2010 to 2020, and that's looking at the decennial census. And then that colored kind of crazy bar chart going on is from the ACS, or American Community Survey. Most recent data, it's a 5-year estimate, so this one's from 2018 to 2022. And it breaks out these housing types. So that big orangey yellow color there is detached single family homes, which is 62% of your district.
What does the MH stand for?
Mobile home.
Okay.
And the second largest piece there is the 5 or more unit, so think apartment complexes. The next piece of housing information we gather is from the Greater Capital Association of Realtors. They provide things like days on the market, number of housing units sold, as well as median household price. This year, median household price in the district is $450,000. And this is only through like the beginning of November. So we did project kind of why that line is continuing to decrease is because we didn't include the projection for housing units sold. So by the end of the year, there'll be 768 housing units sold within your district. Now taking a look at our enrollment projections here. Looking to, and again, these are projected to 2029, 2030. Looking to next year, total enrollment is projected to be 9,311 students. That is a 44 student decrease to this year. And you can see it's kind of stable throughout the projection period here. K through 5 is projected to decrease by 45 students next year. Just a contributing factor to this decrease is the just lower number of students born in the district in 2020, so 5 years prior to next year's enrollment, was only 573, which is pretty far below your average for the district. 6 through 8 enrollment is projected to decrease by 68 students next year. 9 through 12 is projected to increase by 85 students next year. And then we also take a look at our actual enrollment for this year compared to what we had projected last year. And you can see we under projected your enrollment by 124 students. This is actually a good thing. Now I'm showing you the survival multiplier year over year, or retention. And I'm comparing that to 2024, last year, to this year. Last year, and remember 1 signifies growth between the 2 cohorts. Last year, only 7 out of 13 grade cohorts were above 1. This year, 11 out of 13 grades were above 1. And this is above the 5, 10, and 20-year averages for the district, which is why we under-projected a bit, because this was much higher than the usual for the district.
So it doesn't just signify growth though, it also signifies retention.
Correct.
Right, people
Yeah.
are leaving, yeah.
And we also take previous projections, right here is 2022, 23, and 24, and we show them on a chart here. This blue line is the current projection, so you can see pretty stable. It has, compared to previous years, it's not as fast of a rate of decline. We're looking at more stable enrollment now compared to previous years. If you're interested in learning more about health data, economic data, demographic data, capitalregionindicators.org is a great site to use. This is something that CDRPC is a partner of, and you can look at data from the town level, from the zip code level, from the school district level, and you're able to pull a variety of factors for whatever geography you choose.
Second.
And then if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you guys. I appreciate you inviting me to speak.
Thank you, I have a quick question.
Sure.
What are our enrollment statistics versus maybe some of the other major districts that you've been looking at enrolling?
I would say pretty comparable to the other districts that we do enrollments for. Your kindergarten survival multiplier is lower than I see in other districts, but again, this likely will increase when you guys bring on full day kindergarten.
Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks, Nancy.
Do you want your mouse back?
Yes. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kathy, you here? So, Kathy is here, and you want to introduce the next student presentation, Kathy?
So next, we have Mosaic Architects, Kelly Gasperry, to come up and give us an update on the work that's been taking place on plans for 5 Maxwell.
Thanks, Kathy. Hey, everybody. Good to see you all. So, we've got some fun stuff to share tonight. We have received our...
Architectural fun.
Yes. Isn't architecture always fun? Man.
It's inherently fun.
So, we have received SED architectural comments, which is good. We are in the process of addressing them. There were lots, or ones we've never seen before, so we're gently pushing back on some of those, but we're working on that response now, and while we were working on that, we got lucky and the engineering reviewers picked up the set as well. We were thinking that was going to be further out than it is, so that was a good sign. We will receive their comments, and then we will have to address their comments via an addendum. So depending on the timing and the extent of those comments, what we would like to do is try to issue the bid documents by the end of this year to get a good bidding pool of contractors, as people are starting to get their projects lined up. So that is our goal. Will of course depend on the comments. We're also waiting for the fiscal associate review.
When you say end of the, you mean the end of the school year or?
Calendar year.
the year,
End of
like,
the calendar year. Yes, yes. Good question. That was a good question. So if this all comes together properly and we can do that, we will bid and award in January, February, begin construction right away. And that's one thing that's so awesome about this building. It is vacant and they can just start immediately. So we'll begin construction right away in March and have construction complete for August of 2026.
Wow.
So that's the plan. We'll see how those comments come in, but that is our goal for
It's
sure.
so fun to have a date that someone's actually saying, it's like, oh.
I know, right?
That's why I said change the screen
She's
fast.
lining up.
Yeah, she said, it's on the record
No,
now.
I changed the screen fast, you didn't see it.
That's excellent, thank you.
So we're going to share some fun images of the space with you. We've been going through selecting finishes. The district has decided to go with all shades of green, so you'll see different shades of green as we go through. It'll be kind of neat walking down your hallway. We'll go from kind of dark green to lighter and then start up back again. But this is going to be the entry lobby into the kindergarten center. It's right at the corner of the building. So you walk in, we have a very generous sized lobby because that will allow for students gathering, waiting for the bus, things of that nature. And you'll be able to have this nice clear view right into the main office. There'll be a secure transaction window there for people to check visitors in and buzz them in. And this is what it'll look like inside of your main office. Nice and warm and inviting. And this will be the main lobby. So we wanted to have some places in the lobby area for parents to be able to sit, students to play, hang out. Maybe even teachers might, take some kids out there to do some reading, things like that. So nice generous lobby, nice little area for benches, and we've got some graphics going on.
I love the rolling hills as you look out the window.
Right.
Instead of, parking lot.
Yes.
But you have the other ones.
So yes, here's our mountain room. This is one of the multi-use spaces, so this will be used for a variety of activities, really whatever the district wants to use it for, hands-on activities, have some play time. It'll just be a nice space that can be shared among the teachers. And we also have a little platform over on the left-hand side there. So there's a little raised platform for just play things, if you want to do a little production or something like that. This is what it'll look like going down the corridors with the classrooms. You may remember, or maybe not, from when we showed floor plans a long time ago, we have kind of an undulating thing going down the hallway, and that was just because the hallway is so long. So this way we were able to kind of identify the entries to the classrooms by having the walls go in, and they will be a color, so they'll be a shade of green. And you'll see that as you're going down the hall. We call that the front porch. So every classroom has a front porch where they have their little color, they'll have a tack board, and hopefully that way kids will be able to identify that one's my classroom. And this is just what a typical classroom looks like. Pretty standard. We have all the cubbies. Bathroom is in the right-hand corner there, that door in the right-hand corner. Sink outside of the bathroom for hand washing and things of that nature, cleaning up. Pretty standard. This is just a view of what the music classroom will look like. So plenty of storage for instruments and all the cute little things that the little kindergartners use, tambourines and bells and whatnot. This is the gymnasium. It's not your traditional gymnasium, you know, with big high ceiling and all of that. We actually had looked at doing a raised ceiling here, and I think we had reported on this at one point. We looked at doing that, but the cost to remove that structure was just too much. Our structural engineer came back and said, it's not just removing it here, you'd have to remove it all the way up the building and then kind of rebuild it. So we had discussed a lot about the activities that would take place in this space, and there really isn't a need for a full-size gym at this level. So it's actually kind of nice that they have a little bit of a smaller scale, and it's not just this ginormous space for them. And there'll be curtains in the middle so they can divide it up into two to have two classes going on at once. And this is the cafeteria. So the cafeteria is an internal room on the center floor, or on the second floor rather, and we also have divider curtains in there. It was a request because it would be easier to control smaller amounts of students. So sometimes they'll be open, but when they feel the need to kind of separate them, there'll be 3 different bays of space there.
Are they going to be actual curtains, or are they going to be something a little bit more rigid?
They're actual walk-draw curtains. I think you have them in some of the gymnasiums.
Yeah, they're more rigid, they're not, yeah.
They're not,
okay.
yes,
Right.
they're.
The kids won't be
they're
running
true
through 'em.
walk-draw.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yes, but they're not the hard folding partitions.
Gotcha, okay.
And this is the library, and one of the requests was to have kind of a makerspace area or craft area in the library, so that's what you'll see over on the left-hand side. That will have, harder flooring, easier to clean, and they can have materials over there. There's a countertop to work on, and they'll kind of work tables there, and then the rest of the library is fairly open with soft flooring, soft seating, and we also will have some mobile bookshelves. There will be bookshelves on the outer walls, but there'll also be mobile bookshelves in there. We just left them out because it was making the picture a little too hard to read. And this is the nurses' suite. So there's room here for 2 nurses and all of their backup materials and meds and all of that behind them, so it can be nice and secure. And over to the side will be a cot area and another enclosed office for the nurse for kind of sensitive conversations, things like that. And there's also a room that will mostly be used for storage, but is large enough that it could be used as an exam room if needed. Is that the last one? That's the last one. Are you excited?
So excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, I forgot what we decided about food service. Is that on a different floor and then it gets brought down?
The kitchen is right adjacent to the cafeteria. It's
Okay.
across the hall. But what we had talked about is they are going to close off the hallway when bringing the food across. They're actually going to do like a little barrier so that students don't accidentally, knock into the carts or anything like that. But it is right across the hall. It'll come right into the serving area and then distributed to the cafeteria.
Thanks.
It's amazing what you have to think about, right?
Yeah.
What lends into another scenario, what lends into another scenario, what lends into another scenario.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Snowball effect
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else?
It's great. Yeah. Are you excited?
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so next up, we have our construction.
Kathy, you want to talk about the calendar first, and then we go into the other thing?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Keith.
So,
We've been talking about, based on the building condition survey that we're required to do every 5 years, we put together a 5-year capital plan, and a lot of these items that we're going to be talking about on the next referendum are a result of that, among some other things. So we already have a calendar in place for the next capital project referendum. We've talked about it at the November 5th meeting, talking about the listing again tonight, going through some paperwork required by SED, and that's how they determine how much aid we'll get on the project based on rated capacity and things of that nature. We'll be doing a SECRA study. That's the State Environmental Quality Review Act. It's easier to say SECRA, but we engage our architects to do the SECRA process, and that's got to be approved by the Board of Education early on in the process, so around January or so. We also will be determining if there's any other revenue sources that we'll be able to add to the referendum that we're proposing. We may have some capital reserve monies, cash contributions, debt service funds, sale of property, things of that nature. So more to come on that. And in February, that's when we talk about our professional service agreements for the project that we're putting together, including those 4 services there, which we've already begun talking about many of those things. The construction cost estimate, obviously we need to nail that down before we can determine the grand total cost of things. And as we know, grand total cost of things has increased over the years, although I do think delivery times and things like that have improved. So hopefully we'll get a good estimate on what the true cost will end up being. We'll be doing the secret determination through the Board of Education. Then we'll be doing a public information session, wording of the proposition in March, along with when we do the budget propositions. And then we have to do a number of certified mailing copies and things of that nature. There's also legal notice requirements. You can see quite a number of publications, again, coinciding with our budget process. Then we adopted the capital project resolution via board action. We have public information sessions lined up. And then the voter referendum on May 20th. And then if we get a positive vote, then there's more paperwork to be done. But that just kind of walks through the process. A lot of steps involved with deadlines and timing elements and all of those things. Now we can talk about the details of our proposed referendum. And I'm going to invite Augie Freeman, our capital project manager extraordinaire, to walk through the list, as it's quite lengthy.
I wasn't the architect extraordinaire.
I didn't know I was getting a new title. I don't think it's fair that I had to follow that cool slideshow. I got no pictures. I have nothing to show you but dry.
You got your knowledge, my friend.
You guys have been through this enough to know, but this is a process that started long ago with the building condition survey, and then we take the $400 million worth of work that's listed in there, and we meet with the facilities committee and go, oh my God, not doing that. Prioritize everything backwards until we come up with a list that's what are our real priorities? What can we really do? Because you own a lot of real estate. You guys are like giant real estate developers. You've got property everywhere. You've got buildings everywhere. And you use them. You use them a lot. So this is a result of a lot of kids, a lot of activities, a lot of buses, a lot of cars. So it starts with, you've got buildings that have pipes that were put in 1967, 1968. It's time. There's a point where you fix them so many times, it's just time. If you ever own an old house, you know, there's a point where you go, all right, we got to do something for real. Same thing with pavement. I feel like I'm getting old, but I'm looking at parking lots going, we can't possibly need to pave that. I paved that when I first came here, 25 years ago. And it's worn out again. So you'll see Orange and Shattuckon. I still think Shattuckon's a brand new school. Obviously, you've been using it. So the parking lots need work. All of these things, you've driven around campus, you can see, I could go to each one individually, but you go to all the buildings. potholes show up, you do the best you can. And then there's a point where you say, all right, enough slap and pat, we're not patching them, we gotta do this. So same thing with roofs. You've got millions of dollars of roof. You've got a boatload of roofs that are about the same age, and they are the priority ones on here. They need to be done this time around, because we look at this stuff as, not today, might not be leaking today. What's it gonna look like in 5 years when we're done with this finished? Is it gonna make it? So that's how they rise up to be here. So those are the ones right now, and there's sections, it's not the entirety of high school east, but again, how can we possibly need a new roof on the new wing? 2004 we opened it, it's 20 years old, warranty's off. So these things happen, and that's where you're at. The HVAC upgrades, we've got things that are just wearing out. You have good people that keep them running for us year in and year out. But when you spend $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year keeping a $80,000 thing running, at some point you cut your losses there. So all of these HVAC things in each building, end of their useful life, it's time. And they've been prioritized as, yeah, we gotta do these because the next go around is 10 years out. So in the next 5 years, they need the work. High School East is a big ticket. There's a boatload of stuff here that needs to be done. If you remember, we had some roof leaks that ended up in this room. They're actually because of those penthouses that are on this list that were built in 1967, 68, when this building in 70. That's how old they are. It's time.
Penthouses? Yeah, what's a penthouse?
Back in the day, we used to put HVAC stuff inside of a building on top of the roof, and everything was enclosed. Well, now if you look at every commercial building, you can see the air handlers. They're right out in the open because the housings are better, everything about it's better. In the old days, they were inside of a little room. So on top of this building, there are 5 penthouses that were there from day one, and it's time. So we're going to move those sideways to more modern equipment, more efficient equipment, and get rid of the penthouses and the leaks, and those things can just go away. So
Are you gonna move them to the roof or no?
they're on the roof.
Down the road.
They're on the roof.
Yeah,
Basically,
these sort of
we're gonna tear
housing
down
units on top of the roof.
probably a 16-foot square little shed that's on the roof, and there's multiple ones feeding different corners. We're gonna tear those down and put air handlers like you can see when you drive up for every building. That'll be up there. You probably won't see them because the 2-story one you just really can't see. You've never noticed these penthouses, and they've been up there since day one. But it's time for those to just go away. So those are the things in the HVAC side of it. There are bathrooms that need, they've been renovated probably multiple times in their life. It's time for them to get real work. Especially the 2-story wing in this building, a lot of it's original, hasn't been touched since the building was open. So it's, the gang is trying their best to keep toilets and urinals and things functioning, but it's time, so they're gonna go away. Going into the other BCS items, we never ever finish doing asbestos for some reason. It seems to grow back. We take it out, there's more. It's going away, and every time we do a job, we pick out a section that, through facilities and operations to determine this is a problem area, it needs to be dealt with. So let's take a couple thousand square feet, and this time around we'll get rid of it. So way back, we made a conscious decision not to do giant asbestos projects. It was all a function of what are we gonna do in this next project, and how can we remove in that area and do it that way over time. It seems to work, it seems to have been a good plan, so we'll keep it up. The other items on here, you've got stage rigging, the curtains, the tracking, the fireproof curtains. It's very expensive stuff, it's hard to do out of the budget. It's time for it to just move into a capital project. Electrically, every building, every time we've done a project since I've been here, we've upgraded and upgraded and upgraded. But we still use more power things than we ever did. So we need more and better, and a lot of the older things we can't buy breakers for. It's time for them to be replaced wholesale. The switch gear, which is where the main power comes into this building, is original. And every time we have to work on it, we're a little afraid that we may turn this off and it might not come back on, and then what? So, and it takes a year to get one. So it's ready. Going down through, we've got some roof decking things in west. We've got valving. We've got more asbestos work in east. There are safety audit things now that we've got to deal with. High School West is one of the few buildings that does not have a secure entrance. It's systematically, you've done most of your buildings, but that's one that just hasn't gotten there yet. It's time. Ray insists that we need to upgrade the PA system. You know how he is, he wants some new thing, but a lot of your PA stuff is original, it's old, and the newer things are IP based. We'll start with the middle school complex in High School East, and move it into this century with the rest of it. Bus electrification is coming. We had started this conversation with Al, and it was about the parking lot. It started just blacktop, and he said, "What are we going to do about bus electrification?" I said, "Well, I'm here to talk about blacktop." And he said, "Well, we really don't want to do blacktop until we put the conduit in the ground at least, because the parking lot's going to be good for 15 to 20 years. So something will have to be dealt with this bus electrification in that time frame. So before we pave, let's figure out what we're doing, whether we do it all or not. But we at least got to get conduit in the ground. We got to get things done. Start the conversation with National Grid. Do all that background stuff. So here we are. This is going to move into that. You're going to start moving forward with that. It won't be done. It's a long process, but things will be in the ground, and then you can do as the things come up. Things change. Financing comes from the state, federal, whoever. You'll be ready to do it, and you won't have to dig up your brand new parking lot to do it. There's some program enhancements here. The locker rooms areas, which was a shock to me when I found out that locker rooms don't get used that much anymore. And realized, been out of the picture for a while. Kids don't shower in gym anymore. They don't really hardly even get changed anymore. So you've got a big piece of real estate in this building that's really underutilized. You have other programs that are always looking for space, and conversation was around, I was calling it performing arts, but I guess it's more of a audio-visual recording type situation. Would lend itself to that perfectly. I go with that. The robotics needs a home. This will be in this conversation as well. The upstairs, the old group rooms, the amphitheater rooms, they haven't really been, other than cosmetically touched, since they were built. And it was a different concept in 1970 where you put 200 kids in a room and teach them English. Nobody's doing that anymore. So it's time for that to become something else. The air conditioning, the middle school is the only one that has no air conditioning. This will be an exploratory thing to see just how that would be, because it is a series of many editions of all of your buildings. The middle school has the most generations of different things built at different times, so that is something we're still working on. And in athletic fields, we still have some softball, baseball things that have not been touched
Forever.
since I've been here.
Yeah,
I mean, we put a field in the base, the fence in the outfield, they got the big scoreboard donated, but as far as the playing field surfaces, most of that has not been touched in a very long time.
Freshman is atrocious.
So these are all things that are our time, it's time to do them. Like I said, there were many, many more, the list was exponentially larger than this. But we all felt that would be something that could be discussed in 5 years and figure out that you just can't do it all.
So with the locker rooms, what about the middle school locker rooms? The same thing or not? Because you listed the high school ones.
Now, this was the high school.
No, it's only high school. Middle school is a little bit different. Kids kind of
They're in the
enjoy.
hallway,
And it's the same, not same real estate configuration.
Right.
The high school one lends to, location lends to a lot of use for other related to, because you have the music right across the hall, you have all the practice rooms. So it lends to a great, nice flow in high school. And it's a lot of space.
Okay. I was thinking like the location at the middle school, especially the Guana side, it's right up against that tech wing, so, and it's also underutilized, so.
Yeah, that's the one that we looked at when we were looking to store something. But you weren't, I thought it was robotics was looking to store something in middle school. Or
Well,
was
there
it? No,
is
no,
stuff
Bar, it was
stored in
Bar
the
not.
middle school,
It was,
that's in the basement.
what's Color Guard, folks? Color Guard.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was Color Guard.
Okay.
I know, I knew it was somebody,
So, so I have
I'm
another
mixing my
question.
people, time, places, and things.
And this actually gets back to, electrification, capacity. Have we thought about, especially now that we're looking at redoing the roofs, and there's a lot of real estate in that arena, putting panels on the roofs? I know there's an array on High School East,
There's a
but,
large array on East that you were given. It was a free
right, it was a
back in the
grant
day,
or a
a
donation.
large grant. We've had multiple people come here to talk to us about solar, more than a few. And this is just my opinion. You have a lot of real estate that could be used before you start using the roofs. Because what's going to happen is this roof is 20 years old.
Mhm.
So at prevailing wage, we're gonna take that solar panel system off that roof, re-roof it, and then decide if it's worth it to put it back on, because it's gonna be 16, 18 years old by the time is past its useful
You mean
life,
the
so.
existing array.
So, the consensus amongst people who do what I do, we got a lot of parking lots. And then it doesn't matter, like, you don't have to do the roof again, you don't have to deal with your roof. You got miles of blacktop, so if you were gonna do it, go over to Shalma, they built their bus garage, and they built solar arrays to park the buses under.
Oh, yeah.
So that if they need to be replaced, or if your roof needs to be replaced, you don't have to deal with it.
Oh, it's like a shed or a,
And
yeah.
it keeps the snow off them, it's not a parking garage, and it's not,
Okay, Kelly, add that to the list.
it's a whole, it's a different way of thinking about this, it's a way of thinking about the same
110
thing.
million.
Right.
But
How is
I've done it too many times where we try to take these panels off of roofs
Yeah.
and put them back on. You're so far behind financially that you've never saved a dime on your solar.
Okay, so it just doesn't.
It's just a matter of, solar's
Under
great.
solar
but I
panel.
would say you got a lot of empty parking lots that are really.
Do we have empty parking
No,
lots?
I mean, above 12 feet there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha,
Above
gotcha,
12 feet, it's
gotcha.
empty real estate. So.
Well, and then you wouldn't have to plow.
like I said,
Right,
there are-
right,
I mean,
that's
it's
what
just
I'm
those
saying.
things that we think about, the people that actually have to build this stuff, go, oh man, I don't wanna take solar panels off the roof because I gotta replace the roof, it's leaking.
Yes.
So now I've got $2 million worth of prevailing wage guys on the roof disassembling the thing, taking it down, storing it. And
It's pretty
then
bad.
the hard decision is, do you pay them again to put it back when the roof's up? And have you, if this one is getting older, is it even worth it to put it back up? Because it'll be failing before, you've never made your money back ever, is the issue. So the consensus is trying to move it into real estate that has no other function. Parking lots are kind of perfect for it.
Are the high school ACE panels working?
They did.
They're out of function.
I think we were saving about $9,000 a year roughly on electric.
Wow.
And we were getting that back. Well, like I said, it sounds great until you spend $300,000 taking the panels off to fix the roof. That's a lot of years of $9,000 to get back to even.
So we've had to do that already with
Not
that?
yet.
Not yet.
But that roof
But
is
it's
20 years
coming.
old now,
Okay.
so that's
Yeah,
it's
it's about
coming.
the same life in the panels,
Decision
right?
point.
So the
Yeah,
panels
they're
are
about the same,
18, so,
yeah.
yeah, they start degrading.
But we'll investigate to see what it takes, and next facilities meeting that we have some point, probably December, have some conversation around it.
Thank you.
So, I didn't have any pictures or anything, so.
Thanks, you're
Great job.
you're picturing yourself, aren't you?
Very, very descriptive.
You want
Thank
to
you.
say who's gonna
Any other
come down,
questions
we
for
can
him?
see that.
Yeah.
Again,
Thank you.
so thank you for the indulgence, thank you for the questions, and hopefully you see how everything kind of flows into what we're saying, that we need to think about what's the future, right? And all these are things that's gonna be manifested next 3, 5, 7, 10 years out, and we have to make these decisions today, and hopefully the public appreciate it. And so related to that, all you were just talking about buses and infrastructure, the transportation, Belinda has been, and I'm gonna say kudos to Belinda in a couple of different ways. Even though she was in the department as the assistant, you know, it's a big difference between when you become it and when someone else is it. We haven't experienced winter yet, so I'm gonna hold out by calling her magnificent until after we go through the winter.
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary, that's what it was. But I say kudos to Belinda and her team, because, yeah, you know, everybody's dealing with severe driver shortage, and we are too, and we still get people get complaint that buses are not there in time, but I gotta tell you, they're doing a lot of great work over there, and the tone in the environment is positive, and again, Linda could talk about it a little bit, some new traffic of folks coming in, so kudos to her leadership, because when somebody who's been in the position for a long time and been impactful for a long time, the concern you have is, do you have what we call the implementation dip, right, when that transition occurs? We haven't had that at all, so kudos to her in the preparation, and also kudos to Al for that, helping to ensure that the transition has been planned out. So with that being said, Linda.
Thank you. So tonight, we're just going to talk a little bit about our EV electrification journey. We've been on this journey for several years, as most of us know. So we'll just take a little look back on where we have been. So we've contracted with Corning's Technology, who've done some route assessments for us, kind of looked at all of our routes, determined, what we would need in terms of, chargers, battery capacity, power capacity, and things like that. Then we went on to meet with National Grid to assess our power consumption, what our needs would be, what upgrades we would need, any potential costs, and what those timelines would be. We discussed increased electricity needs with our architects, our magnificent architects, our engineers and district administration. We also applied for state and federal grants. We were awarded $882,000 through NYSERDA's NYSBIP, which is the New York School Bus Incentive Program, which we received a 44.5% rebate on the 4 EV buses we purchased, which brought the cost down to the district from $1,976,138.36 to $1,094,138. So that did not include the chargers, though. We did, however, receive $100,000 grant towards our 2 chargers that we purchased. We then worked with InCharge, who is our charger vendor, to and IMS and our contractors to install and commission the 2 level 3 60 kilowatt chargers we purchased. We trained our staff on them, and with those chargers, we're able to remote start them, set them, start them manually. We're able to pull reports to see progress. We're also able to get notifications of any malfunctions or performance that's happening with them when they turn on, when they turn off, what the bus is charged at. So that's really neat. My phone goes off all night long to let me know of all the great things the chargers are doing. But it is a good thing to know what's happening with them, so we don't come in at the last minute and find out, oh look, it's 4:30 in the morning and the chargers didn't charge. So it is helpful to have those. We then looked at all of our routes and determined where the buses would go. What routes were they going to go on? We looked at what buses traveled, hill types of roads, highway driving. We looked at how much mileage they do through the day, how many routes during the day they have, do they have midday routes, and so on. And that helped us evaluate what the performance is really going to look like, to send them in like the 4 corners of the district and all different types of scenarios, and kind of give us a good idea of what those buses are going to be able to do. Then we received the electric buses on August 21st. We then developed training programs, because with those also comes driver training. They need to learn how to drive those. They're not the same as driving a diesel bus. And they need to learn that. So we developed a training program and trained our drivers as well as our subs on how to drive those buses. We then also created a special inspection sheet for them, because they do have different things, again, that a diesel does. So we created a new inspection report. And we also created data collection sheets that each driver fills out and turns into us weekly. And we'll look at a little, some of that data later. But it just asks us, like, what's the temperature out, what was your starting battery, what was your ending battery, how many miles did you drive, and so on. So, where are we now? So we retained Al Karam is still with us, assisting in some of the project managing that's going on for our electrification. We are having ongoing meetings with National Grids to assess our power needs. And we're going to determine, required upgrades, timelines, and potential costs. We're still meeting with architects, engineers, and district administration on increasing the campus electricity, specifically for transportation. Our data collection for the performance on the EVs has begun, and our EVs went into operation on October 1st of this year. So the next slide is going to show a little bit about the EV performance, some of the stuff that we're collecting. And it summarizes the performance of the 4 EV buses for the month of October. It highlights metrics as, battery usage, mileage efficiency, total miles driven, ambient temperatures, average energy consumption, and out-of-service rates. So if you look at this, you can see that EVs 1 and 3 are performing very well. They have very good, mileage, efficiency, battery life, and they maintain a low out-of-service rate, which is good. I think EV1 has only been out of service twice, and that was because the driver had field trips and was not able to complete his entire day with the EV, so he had to come back and switch out his diesel. The other bus was out for, EV3 was just out for actually charger issues and a disconnected transmission touchpad, which is, the EVs do not have, shifters. They have the touchpad, so it was a disconnected pad there, which was a pretty simple fix. So those are performing really well. You can see EV2 and 4 though, not so much. We are having some problems with them. EV2 has the highest out of service rate with 87%. I think it's been on the road 3 times since we've had it. Yes, and EV4 has been out for about 41% of the time since we've had it. The problem with EV4 is a high voltage insulation code, which is a battery issue, and the harness to the battery needs to be replaced, and we cannot get the part. The part has been very difficult to obtain. We have spoken to our vendor and basically, kind of asked politely, and so we're expected to get the next one off the assembly line, but still don't know when that's going to be. And then EV2 is basically, they can't figure out what's wrong with it. It's got some shaking as it's driving. They thought it was a bunch of stuff, and we're still not able to determine what is wrong with it. They believe now that it's a steering mechanism. So some struggles with two doing well, the other 2 not so much. So 50% of the fleet has been down, is one way to kind of look at that.
So just, you probably, we've said this before, we want to get these to play with them, so to speak, because this is not unusual. We had district down the road, had them for 3 or 4 years, and they're on the road. And so we're trying to figure out, on the schools, but vendors, all these folks are trying to figure out how the consistency, because the fear we have is that how many spares do we have to have when something else is not working, right? And so I share that because when we start talking about bus replacements in January or so, you're going to hear some of that in the conversation, because what we can't say is that we can't transport kids, because we knew that this was the track record and we did nothing about it, right? We didn't plan for it. So I share that with the board because, again, how this conversation is going to impact the conversation you're talking about, referendum, how the conversation that Augie just spoke about with infrastructure and energy capacity is going to impact the conversation about future purchasing, all those kind of things. Everything comes into play, right, a ripple effect. So we're trying to guard against having half our fleet down, because think about that nightmare. And so we never want to have that situation. And right now, it's still very unstable. Still very unstable, and we're trying to see how and where it's going to go, and try to be in a position, back to Augie's conversation, that when the electrical capacity and those things or the vehicles become more stable, we'll be in a position to take advantage of it.
So we must have some built-in capacity with 2 buses.
Oh, yeah,
now.
yes.
Yeah. So when we did the proposition last time, normally we would do a 1-for-1 swap. So if we're getting in 20 buses, we would get rid of 20 buses. But with the EVs, we kept 4 more than we normally would have for this reason, just in case. So we do have the spares to swap out. So each driver that got an EV was also assigned a diesel bus. So they basically have 2 buses. So yeah, we did anticipate that.
Each of these buses, they're the same brand. They're supposed to be the same. It's really interesting. Have we heard from other districts that have purchased these buses that have had similar
Other brands with similar issues.
Or even other brands, yeah.
It's, the market space is still unstable. It's probably the best way to describe it.
So, I guess I'm just gonna put it out there. As time goes on in the coming months, and I'm sure this won't be the only topic that we'll be discussing and debating, as time goes on, we wouldn't continue with infrastructure if we knew, or the tea leaves read that this isn't going anywhere.
When you say this,
This whole mandate for New York.
well, I mean, I think a couple of things. It all depends on what that
Exactly,
is,
I
right?
hear you,
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah. So, and the reality, and why that's the case from a legislative perspective, the reality of it is electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular. So every automaker right now on the street has some kind of electrical hybrid version of it. So we know that that's going to be the next generation of vehicles. To what degree it comes into commercial spaces, be it trucks or buses, big vehicles, which I think where they see most of the challenges are, that's to be seen. So with that being said, you know, even infrastructure, we're talking about underground infrastructure capacity that allows us to some point, be it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, to be able to do the plug and play piece of it.
For separate cars and things
Exactly.
like that, okay.
So
okay.
I think it's a worthwhile investment
Okay.
regardless, because
makes
I don't
sense.
see us going back,
Makes sense.
because the market space is all these places are redesigning factories, billions and billions of dollars in anticipation of this as we move forward. So I think we just want to be in a position, great question, Deanna, in a position to be able to capitalize on it and not spend money and then have to undo money to do something else.
That's where I'm
right?
at, that's where I'm at, that was my bottom line
Yeah.
question.
So
Okay.
we're trying to be smart while we try to see where the tea leaves, so to speak, are going.
And just to clarify, so there were 4 diesel buses that were, additional diesel buses were purchased last year.
For EV buses,
Well, to be paired with the EV.
we kept, no, we kept 4.
So instead of selling them, we retain them.
Correct.
So we can retain buses like that?
Well, I mean, it's just something, what's the life cycle of buses, right? So there are buses that are older, that we keep for spares and subbing, and then there are buses, so you always gotta have subs.
Right, but as far as our criteria for retiring buses, did we not retire buses that should have been retired? That
Well,
was
so, and again, I wanna make sure that
Yeah.
the notion, that's a decision that we make in terms of when does it start costing too much to repair? And then, so you have to decide, okay, do we spend $5,000 compensation purposes, $5,000 a year on repair on a vehicle that the value might be $2,500? So it's never a safety thing, period. Because any bus that goes on the road has to pass DOT inspection, period. So the expiration or when we trade out or trade in has nothing to do with, are we gonna have an unsafe, never ever would be the case. So the buses we have are the spares that we wanna keep spares so that we have abundance of spares to deal with this situation. Typically, when we get a new bus, we don't have to think of having to spare for a new bus. But because these are so uncertain, which have proven out, you know, kudos to them, they anticipate, you know what, based upon the experience of others, we may want to keep an extra couple spare buses that we would typically sold off or sold out as a part of our rotation cycle.
So if we're looking at some of, you know, the data here, thank you for this is excellent. You know, 50% of the 4 not going awesome. I mean, how much of this is gonna be aggregated throughout the state and sent to the legislature to say,
So
look,
they have it.
Yeah.
Feeling
So-
Oregon.
So great question again. We did it I did it last August with some support data from Augie, and we'll do it again, maybe again this August with support data from Belinda. The state's collecting a lot of information. And in fact, honestly, they're supposed to be coming out with another report sometime soon based upon the information that's provided to say what's working, what's not working, and then hopefully having a better roadmap, no pun intended, moving forward. So the state education department is collecting information. The question is, what does that do in terms of the because there's many things that affect the legislative piece of it, and then the practical reality of operations, and then the reimbursement aspect of it, because these buses cost twice as much, so that means the state reimbursement on transportation is that much more, and that also has a legislative implication. So they're trying to collect information to see what's feasible, what's not feasible. So they're speaking from a place of information and not assumptions. And you have to remember, there's not a long history with EV buses in schools across the country, period. And so I think they're just trying to make sure that they're not having an overreaction to something that could easily or fast in a short period of time correct itself, such as the manufacturing thing. Who knows, maybe the EV2 here turned out to be the one that people find out, oh my God, on our assembly line, we need to stop doing this, and then the next 5,000 of them will be great. Who knows, right? So we have to be optimistic.
Do we have to buy, do we have to purchase more at the end of this?
So, hold that thought, yes, the answer is yes. And when we do that bus proposition in January, February, March, something like that, yes. So we're going to try to get on some cycle, and we'll still be watching the proverbial tea leaves to see where that's going as well.
Right, but one of the deadlines already pushed out, like the one for idling buses, to not have idling.
But that's been, they're just modified.
Right, but I mean, that there is indication, and also the work that BOCES is doing, that's going back to the state. And so the feeling, and nothing's happened yet, is that these will move out, but they're not going away. It's just, and you're right, I mean, the state is going to have to pick up the tab at the end of the day.
A lot of
So, big tab, right, so that might curb things right there.
I think the thing though is that just sometimes in spite of the data, it seems pretty clear for the moment at least, that there is political will that isn't necessarily rooted as much as we might like in the data. We thought this might happen sooner, that it might get pushed out, but 2027 is still 2027.
We'll see.
It's 2 years, it's not that far out.
Political cycle's
it's coming fast.
interesting, man.
You never know who's gonna be next.
Political cycle's interesting. So, with that being said, I know that Hillary's back there, she wants to go to bed before the news comes on, so.
But I will add, because Gusta did have a question, the work that's being done on the EVs right now is under warranty, so it's not costing us anything, but it's not expensive, it's expensive work,
I think
so at some point when they're not in warranty, that will be a cost that we will have to, monitor and stuff. So that brings us up to what's new in National Grid. So we recently had a meeting with them on October 29th, and here's what we will be looking at doing right now, or soon. The immediate power they can give us, so with an approved application for service, and they also have a medium to heavy duty pilot program that funds Make Ready Pilot, they call it, which does a lot of funding for your infrastructure and grid needs and stuff like that. So what they can offer us right now would be the 1.9 megawatts of flexible capacity. And what flexible capacity just means is that it's borrowed energy, if you will. So
like a hotspot?
It's not right. It's not ours. It's the grids. We would only be able to use it between the 12 and 6 a.m. So it's the borrowed energy from National Grid that you can only use at a certain time of day, which is 12 to 6 a.m. So we would have to charge overnight. This would support 60 electric buses without additional infrastructure from National Grid. We would still have to do infrastructure, obviously, but National Grid would not have to do any additional infrastructure. And this would be available by the time the EPA applications have to be in January 9th, as well as the May 24 budget.
I don't mean to be, this may be I am sorry if this is a silly question, but nobody can just pull up and just use them, right?
No,
I mean, this is.
No, not like a
hotspot.
No, I'm just wondering, you gotta plug in like I'm going to Market 32 and just plug in and roll in. I just
Any infrastructure we build for buses, first of all, the infrastructure for buses is a big difference than infrastructure for cars.
Okay.
So that's, they're not even compatible.
Okay. Sorry,
So
that's a
it.
dumb question, but I can
No, I get it.
Okay.
So we haven't made any changes ourselves to increase capacity, right?
No.
It's just a National Grid
They're saying that,
allocating it.
borrowed power out there, but we still have to do all infrastructure in here
Harness
to
it
use the
yourself.
power out there.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah.
And
Without infrastructure modifications, how many buses can they support?
That would be, with this, would be 60.
no,
overnight charge.
without us.
Oh, without us?
adding
No,
infrastructure.
none, we
Yeah.
We can't do
Exactly.
anything more without that,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, misunderstood.
That's okay.
Yeah,
We can
Yeah.
only
And is
do
it-
4.
right.
Yeah, we can do 4. We're maxing out right now.
We are done.
And is it all or nothing, or can we incrementally increase?
No, it depends on how
60,
much,
or is it
no,
really
it's
just-
up to that, it's up to,
Up to that,
yeah.
okay.
And again, up to at night, under certain conditions and those kind of things.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the reason why, again, align with the other infrastructure piece, that 2 components, infrastructure and power. We can have power, but we don't have infrastructure, or we can have infrastructure, don't have power, so we're trying to have the 2 things aligned.
Well, 2 megawatts is massive.
Yeah.
Like, just 60 buses,
Think about
it's
that.
an insane amount of
Think about
power,
that.
just,
It's a lot of
just being
power.
pulled by Shen.
Yep, a lot of power just to, exactly.
Get a tent.
So then within a year, with again, an approved application for service and another, make-ready pilot application, because each time you, upgrade something with National Grid and go through this program with them, you have to file another application. So if we get approved for that, within a year, they can add, 1.25 megawatts of firm capacity. And what firm means is that it's hours, it's not borrowed, we can use it any time of the day, just us, so not anybody else, just us throughout the day, doesn't matter what time of day, overnight, morning, doesn't matter.
Summer?
So
Summer,
again,
anytime.
and it's, they have the capacity to provide it with new, what's the thing, Augie?
We need transformers.
New transformer, so it's, again, I don't want to make the impression that, oh, you're just going, no, there's a lot of other costs associated with that. So again, we're trying to, both sides of the equation, if you have power capacity, okay, what does it take for you to bring it to us, for us to bring it to our buses? That's the other part of the conversation. And then the third part about it, buying the buses to plug into it too.
Right, so with this within a year, like Augie and Dr. Robinson said, this plan would require, at this point now, we would need load balancing, circuit load balancing. And we would also, at this point, need at least 1 transformer. The transformer under, if we are approved, would be, the Make Ready program does cover 90% of that. But as we move forward and we need a second transformer, they do not. So at that point, we would own our own transformers, we would have to maintain our own transformers, and the Make Ready program would pay 90% of grid infrastructure, but not the transformers. As we continue down the road, once we get past 4.5 megawatts of power, we then are looking at substation.
This makes me wanna like live off the grid in Montana somewhere.
Yeah, so we pick it up again.
But with just the 1 transformer with the first initial, we would still be considered a secondary service customer. So that's still a positive, and 1 transformer though is about $100,000 approximately, with installation being another $300,000 to $500,000 we would be looking at, so.
Can I ask a question? Is, to what Augie was saying, is solar a possible option down the road for us in terms of supplementing the needs associated with this? For buses? Because I know that people are doing that with cars, you know, that they're using solar to.
Think about it, just power, this is, it's not only.
Well, to be honest, I don't really have an answer for you for that without really looking into it, because with our compound, like Augie said, they would have to probably raise the solar panels up, so, you know, without really diving deep into that, looking at what that would look like logistically, I don't really have a good answer for you.
I think that's an interesting question. It's sort of an order of magnitude different in terms of scale right now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are looking at all the options, because
Yeah.
power is an issue, period.
Yeah.
I mean, not only for buses, period, across the grid.
And also generally when they install solar, they install it to the grid,
Yeah.
right? They don't install it to us. So it'll just go
Cycle
back
back
to
through.
the system, and then it'll just add to the overall capacity.
It depends, I think, but.
Yeah, it does depend.
But
do it
I
right.
do think that, you know, to what Dr. Robinson is saying about the amount of, you know, there's so much growth in Clifton Park, and, you know, there's such a strain on the power grid as it is, that there may be, you know, discussion about alternate ways just because of the amount of strain, you know, associated with it.
I definitely want to know
I think I said.
So where do we go next from here? Again, we just continue monitoring the performance of the EVs, collecting data, reviewing the energy consumption, our route efficiency, do we move them off routes, and the maintenance needs. What are they costing us to maintain? Are we able to maintain them? A lot of the stuff, our own mechanics, you know, can't do certain things, so what does that look like too? We continue working with the National Grid and our engineers, applying for funding through the Flexible Connections program. We're going to continue applying for state and federal grants, like the EPA and the NYSERDA and NYSBIP. We actually have begun working on applying for this round of EPA as well as NYSERDA grant and vouchers. But also, and then obviously determining what our bus replacement plan is going to look like when it comes to EVs and diesel. You know, what is that going to look like for us? But in the meantime, still maintaining a healthy fleet. Like I said earlier, we are still going to recommend purchasing diesels in the meantime, as well as keeping some if we need to, until they become, you know, too costly to fix, just so that we can ensure that we do have enough, because half of the fleet being down, we want to make sure we're able to, you know, do what we need to do and bring kids to school.
You did say the chargers are fine. We should have problems with the chargers, just the buses?
Right, we have not had any problems with the chargers not working. I think twice they didn't turn on in the beginning, which is not uncommon. It took us a little while to get like the software kind of down, and that all works out. But once that happens, the charger are actually working pretty well. We have not had any issues with them not working recently. They turn on when they're supposed to, turn off when they're supposed to, send the notifications. So yeah, they've been pretty good. So the other thing we're moving forward with is the infrastructure overview, right? So as you heard a little bit from Augie, some of the potential upgrades we're going to see at transportation is, you know, paving and site preparation. We're going to be preparing for conduits, installing them underground, high capacity wiring to support the charging station. We're also going to probably be working with IMS because we are going to be needing some internet service for the chargers. So that will be looking at the infrastructure as well as power supply enhancements, you know, upgrading our electrical capacity, which involves obviously some transformers to meet the new energy demands that we're going to be looking at. We'll be installing and commissioning our chargers so that when the buses do come, like Dr. Robinson said, they're ready to plug and play. The chargers will be up and running, and therefore when we take delivery of the buses, they will be ready to go. The project timeline, we know that an estimated timeline could be anywhere from 24 months for projects, from approval to completion, planning, permitting, all of that good stuff. One of the things we do have to keep in mind is our bus acquisition. We need to make sure that we do have infrastructure in place, and at the very least, a scheduled date for charger installation, or the buses will not be ordered by the vendor. So timeline for us is very crucial to know that between applying for the grants, ordering the bus, putting infrastructure in place to make sure we don't lose out on anything. And that's what we are. That's what's happening with us.
Lots going on.
Lots going on.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Belinda, appreciate it. Again, thank you for your indulgence. We know that tonight is a lot of heavy, big presentations, but you know, gearing you up for Thanksgiving, so. At this point, Kathy, you want to introduce the water piece, water testing, and then have
Sure. We have our expert consultant here on all things risk management, Hillary Faustine, will present on the water testing.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hillary Hofstein. I'm the Program Manager for Health Safety Risk at Capital Region BOCES, and tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the leaded school drinking water sampling program at Shen and the work that's been done over the last few months. So I'm going to talk about the district basically putting together a water sampling written program. There's not really one that I've seen as an example in the state, so this is something at BOCES that we're helping schools develop. We're looking at a program review. What have we looked at for the sampling program at Shen? The remedial actions that have been done. Investigatory actions. So not everything that has been done as an action to try to correct a high lead level was successful. So those are investigations. So we're trying to figure out how do you correct it. Communication and education. What do those pieces look like, as well as the website, and then future work. Okay, just as a reminder, so the leaded school drinking water regulation has some requirements. It requires schools to test drinking water for lead and to take remedial action if the lead exceeds the actionable threshold. What's important to note is since the last cycle of testing, the action level has been reduced by 2/3. It went from 15 parts per million to now 5 parts per million. So in the district, any outlet that is used or potentially used for cooking or drinking is considered an applicable outlet and it's tested. Outlets that are determined not to be used for cooking or drinking or potentially used are not tested, and those are called non-applicable. All right, so let's take a look at the written plan. So it documents the objectives, the practices, the responsibilities, and the workflow in carrying out the water sampling program. So if you take a look at the table of contents, you can see that we have an overview. We have a sampling program review, which you'll see a snapshot of. We've even looked at next cycles sampling in terms of how are we going to conduct that. We've looked at processes for record keeping, processes for communication in the district, not just to parents and guardians, but also to staff, and also within facilities in order to carry out the work. We have a maintenance and monitoring, I will call it a program in place. We've been working through steps in order to make sure we're tracking what outlets are getting work done on them, what needs to be tested after that work is done, and then tracking that back to the remedial action plan. We've looked at the overall actions for outlets, all the attempts that have been made in terms of corrections, and then also all the investigations that have been done. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the program review, what you can see is that we have an outline of, we've looked at records, we've looked to see what we have, what we need to maintain, we've looked at the remedial activities, and that's really an ongoing process. We've reviewed the program in terms of the roles and responsibilities of different staff, stakeholders in the district. We've also looked at specifically drinking fountain capacity in the district. So as it's been identified that water fountains in some of the elementary schools have had exceedances, those water fountains have been taken out of service, and in order to keep up with the requirements of building codes, new drinking fountains have been installed in the school buildings, and that was done over the last few months. We've looked at a review of the water outlet profile. That's been updated, and generally it gets tweaked on a weekly basis. Same thing with the remedial action plan, because as work is done, we're tracking it, and things are getting updated at that point. So next slide. Overall, the corrective actions and remediation, we have looked at removing outlets that have exceedances if they're no longer needed. We've looked at outlet or pipe replacements. That kind of work has been done. When pipes or other water outlets, fixtures, plumbing materials have been replaced, they're replaced with keeping to the Safe Drinking Water Act standards with NSF and ENC, 61 and 372 certifications. We've looked at flushing programs. That's kind of a work in process right now. We're still thinking that through, where it might be reasonable to do flushing operations. We have installed point of use faucet mount filters in different locations. We've also looked at installing inline filters in different locations, and I'll expand on that in a little bit. We've looked at the supervision of outlet use in the elementary schools, engineering controls, for example, slop sinks in custodial areas are locked during the school day, engineering controls, locked doors, and also hose bibs for locks for those. And then non-potable water outlet signage. So we did a review of signage in the district, where signage should be placed, and make sure that those signs were actually where they were supposed to be. Next slide. Okay. And as I go into some of the statistics here, I just want to shout out to the facilities department, custodians, maintenance, all of those people involved who've done a huge amount of work over the last few months to get these things done. So for the addition of water fountains and bottle filling stations, about 40 new water fountain bottle filler units were installed. Those are additional units, not replacements, to make sure there are at least one drinking fountain unit per 100 occupants in a school building. And where things were placed was based on location and where occupancy was needed. So you exceed the requirement right now for drinking fountains. Next slide. Also looked at non-potable water signage. So we instituted a signage inspection process. About 1,000 water outlets, locations that we wanted to make sure signage was in place were reviewed, and then signage was posted where needed. Next slide. Talk about point of use and inline filters. So what the district noted is that they looked at, for example, a classroom sink that had an exceedance, and they changed out the faucet fixture. That did not result in a remediated outlet. So that means the issue is somewhere else. It might be in the pipes. And so in those locations, we've looked at putting in filters in the meantime. So there are point of use faucet mount filters in kitchen sink faucets in the kitchens, faculty room sink faucets, and then also in some classroom faucets. The other thing that we're looking at right now is inline filters. So under the sink, inline filters in elementary school classrooms. This is something we've looked at fairly recently. We've installed inline filters in kitchen sinks, as well as for plum coffee machines where there were exceedances. Next slide. Again, so for the permanent removal and disconnection of service lines, there has been a disconnection of service lines to classroom water fountains in the elementary schools. So in those buildings, classrooms had a combo sink and water fountain unit. And so where that existed, the water fountain was disconnected from service, so it can't be used. The students do need to actually use the sinks for hand washing facilities because that is their hand washing sink when they use the restroom in the classroom suites. So we've looked at the permanent removal of fixtures as determined. And then in terms of investigatory.
So those classroom sinks, I saw that one clearly had a fountain on it, but
Yeah.
the ones where it's just a nozzle, those still have the signs, those don't have the inline filters?
So far, yes, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yep. So for investigatory actions, when we looked at buildings that had a large number of exceedances, we had a question, is the water coming into the building have a high lead level or lead level above 5 parts per million? And so the district partnered with Clifton Park Water Authority, and they were really great. And they did point of entry testing at every building inlet, and they found that the water coming into the building is below the action level, so we know that. Next, we have fixture replacements. Like I said, there have been a number of fixture replacements that have been done. They did not result in lowering the exceedance. Piping replacements, that was also something that was investigated for kitchen kettles. Piping was replaced. That did not actually result in a remediation. So what was required actually was a faucet handle change as well as an inline filter. And we were able to correct the kettles. Sampling after let it run. So one of the things that I'll just point out is that the district did do some testing in different locations where instead of doing a first draw sample, they let the water run for like 40 seconds. And then when they tested the water, the water was below the action level. So what I would put out there is that whether you're at school or you're at home, let the water run before you drink it. Let it run till it's cold. Generally, you'll have a healthier drinking water.
And I would say that particularly when you're traveling, hotels, let the water run. Because a lot of places don't have the same requirements for water testing as we do. So just little footnote.
Yeah, and that's something the Department of Health is trying to push out as well, as education for people. Okay, next slide. All right, so let's look at the remedial plan status. So far, the district has a reduction in water outlet exceedances of 21%. And you can see per building, just so you know, there are about 1,700 outlets that have been identified in the district as a water outlet. About 42% of those outlets are applicable outlets, so they get tested. Where the two right columns are the number of exceedances that were noted after initial testing, and then the number of exceedances remaining as of about a week ago. Actually, the numbers are slightly changed now. I know that there's about 5 to 10 reductions in exceedances across the district, I think, since then. So there's a 21% reduction so far in water outlets. However, you'll note that the elementary schools still have a large number of exceedances, or a larger number of exceedances, and that's because of those classroom sinks that tested high. But they have to be in the classroom because you have to have a certain number of hand washing facilities as per code. So and those were tested. And the reason they were tested is because there's the potential somebody could drink out of it. So we want to know, what is it testing at? So some of the statistics that I have for this, if inline filters are installed under the sinks in those classrooms, and that would address 112 exceedances in those buildings, that would actually increase the number of reduction of exceedances in the district to 85%. So you would only have 15% of exceedances left in the district. So the plan right now is to install those inline filters.
It's more like when they're installed.
When
We're in
they're
the process now.
Okay.
Right, so my understanding is that one has been put into place, sampling needs to be done, so we can show that it actually remediates the classroom sink, and then from that point on, we'll move to doing that.
So we don't know where the lead's coming from still?
It's probably in the piping, it's not from the fixtures, we know that.
Just generically somewhere in the building, there's
And those are older buildings.
And just while Hillary look at some stats, we think some of the pipe work that Augie alluded to wasn't because of water testing, it was because they're old. And that will certainly help the situation, let me say it that way, as we replace old piping in our old buildings, so that'll definitely help the situation.
Yeah, in those cases, you may not have to filter anymore
Yeah.
if pipes are replaced. So, but in the meantime, filters will be installed.
How often do they have to get
Changed.
Yeah.
Their capacity is 10,000 gallons. It's not clear how much water they use in the classrooms, but I think they've established a PM program of at least annually, which should be more than enough for those filters.
Do the schools themselves, each individual school, get a kind of a final report of how this, where you're at with the water? They each get their own?
We can certainly do that. Right now, it's definitely still a work in progress. We're still looking at how we're going to track things, but that would be something that.
But all the data is all on our website now. But I think, Barb, we're going to be sending out a community, well, you'll see it next, I'm still in the presentation.
No, it's okay.
Let me be quiet.
That's definitely something.
Yeah, I was just looking at an overall, just to get an idea.
Yeah, the testing cycle ends December 31st of 2025, so the district started their process early on, so I could see a time where, as they're finishing up and buildings are considered complete, that they provide that kind of information. Okay. So then talking about communication education, so we talked about a process for periodic reminders for students and staff about potable or non-potable signage, what that means, where they can get Drinking water, we talk about the new installation of bottle filler, water fountain units, things like that. Providing info sheets to faculty and staff about point of use filters and when it's appropriate to contact somebody when it's a filter change, although the custodial and maintenance departments are taking a look at when those filters should be changed. Announcements for planned testing and inspections. So again, we talked about looking at the next cycle, as well as the district has sent out communications to buildings when signage inspections are going to be done, as well as if other testing is happening. And then website updates. So right now, we're updating the website about every month, just with the changes that are happening. This is an example of the web page. So if you look at the left-hand side, that's kind of the top of the page, and there's a narrative there that explains about the testing. And if you scroll further down the page, you're going to see a link to the lab reports. And so as testing is done, the lab reports get added to that folder, basically in a Google Drive. And then below that is a link to the remediation plan. And right now, like I said, we're updating the remediation plan like on a monthly basis. Next page. That looks something like this. So if you click on the remediation updates, you'll see in the Google Drive a list of files. And if you scroll up a little bit, Kelly, just so you can see the bottom of that page, yeah, where you see the blue, that's the November update of the remediation plan. And an example of what the remediation plan looks like is on the right. So it explains what the sample is, what the outlet is, and what remediation was done, and any notes.
I can't actually read that, so it describes in detail where the outlet is, or does it just
Yep.
have a?
So it gives, that middle column on the left, says where that water outlet is.
Oh, nice.
What the type of outlet is, what the initial test level was, and if it was remediated, what the new test showed after remediation, whether it was non-detect or below the action level. Okay, and then future actions. So we're continuing to look at remedial actions and doing corrections to exceedances in buildings, finalizing the written plan, updating the water profile and updating maps, as well as the installation of inline filters in classrooms. Okay. Any other questions?
What's the timeline goal for?
For that, that's a good question. We haven't exactly determined that, but I think the idea of meeting to look at the overall program and determining what the next steps are and target dates would be appropriate. Earlier in my presentation, we do have in the written program like a draft right there of some target dates for completions. Mm-hmm. I don't have a target date for the completion of the inline filters in classrooms yet, but kind of an estimation of what we'll do is there, but we'll probably update it frankly after we meet.
Yeah, and that's gonna, I mean, one, we just wanna make sure that it works before we go buy 100 of them.
Yeah.
You know, so once we figure that out and have enough evidence of it, then we're already geared up to purchase and install.
And is the ultimate goal like 100% staying below the 5 ppb, or is there?
For the applicable outlets, yeah, that is the goal.
And where is the, and I'm asking this because I actually don't know, where is the Sarasota County help on this?
In terms of,
Like, are they assisting, are they?
they have provided some information to the district. They have looked at the outlets that have exceedances and provided some feedback, but we haven't actually gotten anything back from them formally in terms of suggestions. They did, when they visited the district, talk about specific things, and the district did correct those things. Like there were, I think, 3 outlets that they made suggestions to just cap. And so the district has done that. So we're also looking at other suggestions that they had as well.
Good. Any other questions? This is, I have to say, this is fantastic. I don't think anyone else in the state
No.
is
I
doing
agree.
this. And certainly the state health department has not given the type of guidance that I would have liked. And so it does seem like you're creating the entire project from scratch.
Well, I have to give the Department of Health credit, to be honest with you. Like, this is the 3rd cycle that schools have had to do lead and water testing. And every year, the information we've gotten from them is better.
Okay.
So I do have to say that we are in a much different place than we were in 2016. And the program manual we've developed is based on the guidance manual that DOH had. So the written program that we developed for Shen uses aspects of that. So it's not that DOH has a written program, but they do have recommendations, and those recommendations we've implemented into the plan. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, nice job. And so, certainly last but certainly not least, we have Barb and Ned here to provide an overview. And as they come forward, who's up first? Barb, you up first?
Neither one of them are moving.
You know, you have to jump to. But again, as Barb and Ned comes forward, I think, Petra, thank you very much for those questions. And I think it's an important part, and I think Hillary is very humble by saying that we are in fact doing stuff that doesn't exist. And we anticipate that, you know, we always say that places watch us and they'll say, well, if Shen, because of our size, can do certain things effectively, then it can be scaled to other school districts, because most school districts across the state are smaller, right? And so we're cognizant of that, and we don't mind once we get documents to become best practice, because quite frankly, this reminds me of when we were going through COVID, creating COVID protocols. And a lot of Shen protocols became protocols across the region and the state, which we don't mind, because at the end of the day, I think we all have that fundamental piece of the best interests of kids in mind, and we want to create the safest situation for kids. So I appreciate it. So hopefully, you know, people will pick up in the county, the state, whomever, and have protocols that just, so it's not such a grind right now. Right now, we're grinding, and good thing we have brilliant minds like Hillary to work with us every day or whatever time we need to get this going. So I appreciate it. And then people, Barb and Ned, some of those folks, which you talk about some of the department now. So there's a lot of things going on in addition to all this. So I think you have a great appreciation of it now.
I'm not gonna take as long as everyone else, so I told Oliver it's taking 5 to 7 minutes. So here we go.
Okay, I'm starting it. Go, Barb, go.
So, thank you, Oliver, for me speak on behalf of my staff, and thank you to the board. First of all, I have 82 cleaners, and I have 5 security full-time and 4 part-time, and 1 warehouse driver. The total square footage of the, next slide, thank you. The total square footage that we clean daily is 1.4 million square feet. That includes setting up programs, garbage detail for 9,000 students, bathroom emergencies, and actually the best feeling for everyone, that any of the cleaners, is when you get a high five first thing in the morning when the guys get off the bus. They are phenomenal, and the guys love it, and it makes it worth the day. They're a hard-working group, I have to say that. Next slide. Okay. This past year, what do we do? From January to October of this year, we did 1,100 work orders have been completed by the cleaners, by the cleaning staff. Since COVID, we are cleaning exactly the way we cleaned during COVID. We're doing, desks are being cleaned every single night. We're doing high-touch areas constantly all day long. So we didn't go backwards. Actually, COVID to us was really good for us, because we really went forward rather than going back to the old standards. Also with COVID, we started doing univents. Also, we're doing it 3 times a year, which means we have over 800 univents in the district, and we're doing 2,400. And that's through the cleaning staff. They go in January, June, I think it's January, June, and then August. That point. So we're doing well. We have a 5-year program, 5-year painting program, which means that every year we are on a rotation, so we paint so many rooms every year. And also we do touch-ups in each room. And they also do minor repairs. We do ballasts, light bulbs, light switches, And during the summer is when we do our thorough cleaning. And this past summer, just to give you some, okay, that's my training, let me go to that first.
I go back, Barb.
Pardon? We'll go to training first. This is our professional training that we give professional development to the cleaners. They go through ISSA, which is the Cleaning Maintenance Institute, and the custodial staff, they go through a training program that provides knowledge of corporate standards regarding chemical properties, application, hard floor cares, maintaining their equipment, restroom care, disinfecting, and as a matter of fact, the yellow piece of equipment is called a kaivac. And they go in and they clean all the bathrooms with it, and actually we're cleaning carpets with it too. It's really a phenomenal machine. And that's what we learned through the CMI training. There's the instructor, Mark Warner, he came in and he said, this is a great piece of equipment that you should have. And it has proven during COVID that it was really good because we could disinfect relatively fast. So that was good. Okay, next slide, let's see where I'm going. This is our summer cleaning routine, which this year, during the summertime, it's very difficult for us because we have a lot of programs. We can't get into classrooms, so they've become very creative in what they do. So this summer, Carrigan Arenda, we replaced the entire cafeteria ceiling with ceiling tiles from Maxwell.
Wow.
They did the grids, they painted the diffusers and everything. Fantastic job. If you're in that building, look at the ceiling. The high school east, we did the same here in many of the rooms where we used the tiles from Maxwell. In this building also, they went through every single univent, cleaned the univent, vacuumed it out, and we found concerns that we have a list, and now our vendor is going through those problems. We pressure washed the bleachers. That was a big thing this year. Hasn't been for a long time. In Orange and Shattuck, we pull up carpets, we put down carpets. Right now we're doing install of carpeting at Carrigan Arenda next week actually. And now where are we going? Okay, this is our daily routine. We clean windows, we do everything. I just want to go to power off. Okay. I do want to go to our security force. My security force is 24/7, if you don't know that. Some people know it better than others. And we basically, we do a lot of traffic detail and we're protecting the properties here. They, if there's vandalism or anything like that, they're there. I think, as far as training, I do want to mention one thing. With regards to the security training, we provide annual training for their licensing, but we also have provided Narcan training, stop the bleed training, and AED training. Because they're here 24/7, they may see someone having a problem. And also, I just want to mention about the cleaners. The cleaners are ambassadors of Shenendehowa. They are the only ones here for activities or anything. I'm sure many of you have been here, and they're the eyes and the ears of this building or any building in the district. So I'm very proud of them. They do a heck of a job. For 1.4 million square feet, that's a lot of work.
Thanks, Barb.
So, Barb, you know what, and I wanted to say.
Minutes?
Huh?
8 minutes.
All right, I'm sorry, well, I'm just giving you 20 seconds, but for people, people need to know that, I know the people around the table know this, but you are in the trenches with everybody. You are up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I've seen you on weekends rolling through the campuses, and not just here on the big campus, but even the elementary schools. So, really, a big kudos to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But my people do all the work.
Get it? Yep.
Good evening. My name is Ned Sikik. I'm a facility director. I'm just going to start with maintenance department. I do have 3 maintenance supervisor, 2 sub, and 1 vacancy. In grounds department, I do have 7 grounds, including 1 crew chief leader. In maintenance department, we're actually doing pretty much lighting, wiring, electrical panel, plumbing repairs, facility bathrooms, kitchen, repair of buildings, including walls, try to do more inside in the house, repairs for roof leaks, patching the roofs. Most of those roofs, they actually kind of like expire warranty, so we try to do much as we can. We did install about 45 water fillers in whole schools. From January till now, we did complete about 1,338 work orders as a maintenance. For a safety audit, we're actually in process doing installation on LED lights on all buildings and outside. We're in the process also doing them inside the buildings, changing them from fluorescent light bulbs to LED. We do installing magnetic door holders for safety audit. We did installing proper door locks, changing hardwares, installing the windows and classroom doors for safety audit. In transportation parking lot, all cracks are filled and patched for basically we try to extend about 2 more years till we start a big project for EV buses over there. We also completed north and south road, filling all those cracks and patched the potholes. High school east parking lot is also completed. South and north Chenko Acte project we did completed with AC. So pretty much all those school has window AC units. And what we're actually going to do, we're gonna, it's pretty much I think like over 50, we're gonna be replacing them, removing them, installing the window glass. So that way we're gonna save on HVAC and heating and cooling. We're not gonna have pretty much, draft air and that kind of stuff, around those AC window units. Saving on energy. South and North Middle School, transportation, High School West, we're going to replace some PTAX cassette units, and so that way it's going to be kind of like more high efficient. We are in process for that. High School East, the main big chiller was actually out of order last year and this year, so what we actually did, we did replace the control panel, and we also installed a speed drive. Speed drive is going to actually reduce usage of power, and it's going to be more efficient, so we're going to save a lot of money on that kind of stuff. For grounds, we do have emergency protocol for removing the snow. They're pretty much all on standby for snow removal. We do have bosses for training, unloaders and snow removal working with us. We do striping, we spray paint all those parking lots, main roads. We do all sport fields, lining, maintaining, landscaping, trimming the trees, trimming the shrubs, cutting the trees, and very much we working on maintaining the parking lots, main roads, for pathways.
And also planting trees.
I'm planting the trees, that's true.
The 75-year project,
We do in the house basically repairing all those, maintaining lawnmowers and snow plow, that kind of stuff, preventing the maintenance and try to extend the lives.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always amazing to hear the thousands of work orders that get completed.
How can there be enough people?
I know, it doesn't seem like there's enough people.
I know, it's incredible. Thank you, everybody.
Be careful what you ask for, you might be getting some requests.
Yeah.
No, thank you first, before we transition, Patrick, again, thank you very much as a board. You know, it's for, when you think about for the couple hours, I think it's great, I think it's important also for the board and the community to have an appreciation that when you walk into a space, there's a lot of people behind the curtain, so to speak. They're making sure that things function, things happen the way they're supposed to happen. And, you know, and sometimes we don't give enough kudos to those folks because many times we don't see them. So I hope that people are listening, hope you and folks know that as a board we appreciate the work that people are doing. I'm not taking words out of your mouth, but I think I can speak by saying that we do because we see what happens when it doesn't, right? But yeah, we have a lot of people doing a lot of work, and it's a great place to work. And we're always looking for good people in trans, good people in facilities and operations. And so that's my plug too, to say that people want to come work for an organization that your work is valued and appreciated. This is a great place to be. So thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I think we moved on to our single action item. We have the capital project change order. Do you want to put that up on the screen?
Yeah, it's a good kind, you're giving credit.
It's always nice when we're getting money back.
Right.
Right. Can I have a motion to approve? Just blanks on your name. Deanna's first is higher.
Yeah, I'm
Who
sure
is
it did,
second?
yeah.
One
I'm sure it
of you,
did.
all in favor? 7 in
Whoever
favor.
you are.
The motion passes. I'm sorry, I'm just tired.
I know.
It's a good tired. And I believe that is it. So for the good of the order, I'm just gonna say happy Thanksgiving in advance. I hope everyone has a very healthy and safe holiday. And we will see you all in December. Would anyone else like to shout out, or, you know what, I never asked Maddie or our Senate rep if you guys have anything to add. No problem.
I can talk about what we're doing for Senate.
Yeah.
So our really big thing now, it's like really official, is the snowball dance, and we're really excited about that. Hopefully it goes well this year. And that's on February 8th. And we're already just starting to advertise with like big banners around the school and everything. And we're also starting to sell after Thanksgiving break. So hopefully it goes well.
Hey, can you talk about the giving?
Yeah, that's this Thursday.
What
So
time?
a lot of people are like volunteering for it, and it's for the seniors.
And what time is it?
It's at 6:30.
community.
And I hear like upwards of like 500 people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
There's
there's
gonna be a
no
lot of
mistake.
people,
That's
and
great.
a lot of students are helping.
Yeah,
so it's
that's great.
It's wonderful. Is this the second year they're giving?
No,
This is
no,
the-
it's-
I'm sorry.
Long time.
But, okay, but it's just
Every year it gets
really-
bigger
it's
and
just
bigger
this
and bigger.
year.
It's really nice, really well done.
And I like that your snowball dance will compete, and it's good because it takes, I know there are private schools that have dances at the same time, and then we're allowing outside in, so that's great. I think that was a great call on you
Yeah,
guys.
and there was like a weird thing with the tickets about like having your like school email, but now we're like fixing that.
Yep.
So.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you. Would anyone else like to say anything?
Okay, since, Barb was up speaking, I gotta give a shout out because her team behind the scenes worked their magic. I mean, I'm also very grateful for Team 20 organizing to make the Rumble happen. But there were some things that I know Mrs. Barrett would take care of in the past. And then when I found out that they were done, I thought, okay, so there had to be some fairies behind the scenes making things happen. But tables got where they needed, because some of them have to come out of storage here and go to High School West. And also throughout the day, the team John checked in. They do such a nice job. And then to hear, detail about what our teams are doing behind the scenes, just to, you're absolutely right. They are the face of the district. They are out there meeting people, greeting people, and immediately helping them when they're needed. And just cannot say enough for that. I did not realize it was only 82. You said? How many people did you say? 82 in total? It just seems like it's a small group doing a lot of work. A lot of heroes there. So
We are very grateful in this season of gratitude for.
Boy, it sounds like we'll be adding another staff during the budget presentation.
That's right. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Augusta, and then whoever that is. Just kidding, Dan.
Well, where I can be wherever you want me to be right now. Okay.
All in favor? 7 in favor, motion passes. Thank you guys very much.